Back again here at Bangor with BHA Chief Executive Nick Rust, and it's finance rather than integrity we're going to chat about now. Nick, you had a long history in bookmaking before you joined the BHA. Was that the main reason you were brought in, to tackle the bookmakers on the financial front?
Well, it wasn't my brief, but I'm sure it was part of the reason that I was considered for the job. And certainly it was one of the key things that we needed to address when I joined. Because 50% of bets on British racing weren't attracting a direct payment at the time.
Let's go back to the Gimcrack dinner, almost exactly a year ago. You spoke that evening. You said racing was at a critical crossroads, staring into the abyss because 40% of betting was taking place offshore. How much money was escaping British racing at that point, and how much is escaping now?
Well, I think probably around about 25 to 30 million then, and now 40 to 50 million pounds.
You took on the ABP position, the authorised betting position. You said it was neither a declaration of war nor a plea to the moral position. It set the bookmaking world at loggerheads with each other. It's worked in some ways. You have various operators have come aboard. That's great. But the five big high street operators, Ladbrokes, Corals, Hills, Paddy Power, Betfair, they are still standing aside from this. Why is that?
Betfair's certainly in.
Betfred, sorry.
Betfred, indeed. Look, I think you'll have to ask them, but as far as ABP is concerned, we've generated in this levy year, we expect to generate between 12 and 15 million pounds that the sport wouldn't have had, which is helping to keep prize money, particularly at grassroots level, at a sustainable level to run this sport 362 days a year, and we probably run it 362 days a year because of the needs of off-course betting operators, and we feel it's right that we should get paid. Some enlightened offshore operators accepted the longer-term position, saw an opportunity actually because of the value of British racing to them, to say, right, we've got a chance to get more closely involved and to get some benefits from an association with British racing, and they've come on board. And I think many of those companies are talking about the benefit that that's given them. I think, unfortunately, some of the traditional operators have missed a trick. They tried to talk down the value of British racing. They talked a year ago about the time of my Gimcrack speech about racing should be careful what it wishes for because we'll spend our money elsewhere. And we know that the major bookmakers still very badly want an association with British racing. The great thing from my point of view about that is nothing to do with authorised betting partners. It's to do with the fact that the racecourses, the commercial arm of our sport, are realising that there are other available sponsors out there and are getting confidence from that fact.
8 to 9 years ago, a very similar standoff to this. Turf TV pictures. You were wearing your coral hat at the time.
Yep.
You were the first to blink. Others followed. Were you hoping for a similar situation this time? Were you hoping that there was another Nick Rust out there? Because in relation to the big five, there hasn't been. Has it backfired?
Well, no, I was hoping that, not blink, but I was hoping that people would come on board and say, well, we make quite a substantial amount of profits from people who bet on British racing, and we need to see British racing properly funded, and we'd like the association. We were hoping that would happen. As regards to Turf TV, it was a commercial opportunity a number of years ago. Someone was always going to go with Turf TV, and Coral got a tremendous deal out of it.
12 months ago, you made a plea to the independent racecourses, strong independent racecourses, about sponsorship, etc., outside Jockey Club Racecourses control. Levy gain dwarfs short-term yield. Have they listened to that plea, and have they played ball with the BHA on this?
Well, I think, first of all, it's not the BHA's policy. It's British Racing's policy. It's the horsemen, the racecourses, and the BHA within our members' agreement all support this approach. The racecourses have largely stood together. There were quite a few rumblings. There were some who were unhappy that couldn't see how it would work out. There was never, ever the requirement to fulfill being an operator within the racecourse group that you would not do an arrangement with a non-authorised betting partner. That's a stance taken by some of the operators. But despite that, most of the racecourses have said, we'll wait and see what happens, and we will stand by this.
York and Ascot have been pragmatic. The dogs in the street know that Newbury are thinking of getting in bed with a non-ABP for a big race. Are the natives getting restless?
Well, I think each individual commercial operator is free to do what it will. If Newbury does the deal that you're referring to, all it will say to me is that the operator involved is desperate to have a relationship with British racing.
Any chance that one of the big five will come aboard and become ABPs before next spring when the government is slated to intervene?
I think it's difficult from their point of view, given that they are busy, lobbying the government over its final decision on the replacement of the levy. The Secretary of State, and rather the Sports Minister, Tracy Crouch, has indicated she's minded to put the replacement in at 10%. They're busy lobbying for that. It'll be difficult for them to come on board on ABP in the meantime. We expect the government to act, but if for whatever reason it doesn't act, then the ABP scheme will keep going until the funds start flowing from government in April.
2 or 3 quickies to finish off. You want to work with entitled operators. That's a constant phrase you use. Some people will say, well, some of those entitled operators enlightened are putting precious little into the pot compared to the big five.
Well, I think these operators, if you look at even the smaller operators online, they are putting in substantial sponsorship amounts as well as what they generate from their bets. But it's the principle of the thing. It's the principle around offshore betting and escaping making a payment to keep racing going. That's what we're after establishing.
Sponsorship. You said that there would be loads and loads of companies to fill the gap for the non-ABPs. It hasn't been that easy. Far from it.
I don't think I said loads and loads. I said I think that there would be organisations willing to come forward, and that British racing, which is starting to do, the racecourses are working really well together and starting to showcase through their Showcase Awards best practice. They're starting to work together, looking at sponsors across more than one track, and to bring our sport into the most modern world of sponsorship. And I think we should take confidence. I think it will come. And I think it's been too easy in the past just to say, oh, we'll go to our bookmaker and get a few more quid off them.
On that point, relations with those big bookmakers I've mentioned have never been worse. I think that's fair to say. Can those fences be mended in time?
Well, I've worked inside bookmaking, as you said, for 27 years. I wouldn't say that the relations are never worse. I've seen times when they've been difficult. Look, I think this is about a point of principle. The levy and its replacement and modernising it has been the talk for 10 years. Government is finally and very well getting into a position to sort the problem so that we can work together. As soon as this is done, I'm quite sure that some of the major issues between betting and racing will get sorted. For example, the fixture list, and I know you might want to talk about that later, but we are running a fixture list for betting now which relates to betting shops. More than 50% of the business is not through betting shops. We're going to have to adapt on behalf of betting. I'm willing to do that. Tough as that will be inside the sport, I'm willing to make that happen.
Where will we be on the ABP saga this time next year?
Well, I fully expect that the government will have put in place the levy replacement, so ABP won't be here anymore. We will have in place a racing and betting forum, I hope, where operators who are willing to assist will come forward with their data, and we will listen to them about what they want from British racing.
And yes or no, British racing could, in 12 months' time, be 30 to 40 million pounds better off?
I think it could be 30 million better off, which will make a huge difference to grassroots and at tracks like this.
Positive Christmas note to end on. Thanks to Nick Rust for telling us all about the latest ABP updates.